all those very, very special people, caretakers of the earth, champions of compassion, and architects of positive change. I am so thrilled to welcome you back to another heartwarming episode of A Dose of Positivity. And I want to thank everybody who's showed up live today and everybody who is also joining us from the Facebook groups. And welcome to you who are finding us via a replay. I'm so glad you're here on either one of our podcast channels or in YouTube. So thank you for showing up. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm your host. I'm Donna Maltz, and many know me as Mama Donna. And today's gathering promises to be nothing short of inspiring, as each week on A Dose of Positivity, we bring these champions to the forefront. And today, my special guest, Julie DeLucca-Collins, is awesome. She is going to raise your vibration, your confidence level, and mine too. And I'm so grateful you're here, Julie. But before we get going, everybody, and I introduce you to this incredible woman, I just want to let you know and to remind you that because it is a live show and we do welcome people to come up on the stage and share your experience, your stories, all you have to do is click on that little raise the hand or put your information in the chat, or any feedback or comment helps the listeners thrive as well. So your input is so amazingly appreciated. So anyway, but I have a terrific story that I'm going to read to you that, like, you know, the word confidence, what we're talking about. And today we're going to be talking about how confidence not only affects our mental well-being, but also our physical, intellectual, our community well-being. The word confidence is often talked about is almost like egotistical, or, oh, you have so much confidence, or you lack confidence. But where's that middle ground of confidence? And that's what we're after today. We're after that balance of when confidence becomes something that we rely on to help make our lives and the world a better place. And I'm going to read you this story because what Julie is so amazing at is she helps primarily female entrepreneurs raise their vibration and their confidence level to be successful in life and career. And I want you all to think about this while I'm reading this story. I'm going to ask you a question. I'm going to challenge you to think back. Who and when and where did you really understand what it meant to have confidence, and how confidence affected your life? Okay? So this story is called Branching Out into the Workforce. And I am reading from this book, Living Like the Future Matters, The Evolution of a Soul-to-Soul Entrepreneur, which Julie is all about. And I'm going to start with a little quote of mine. The first job experience sets the tone for the next. Learning how to be of service is important for the youth to know. Unquote. At 13, I got my first real job as a corn shucker at the only farm stand in town. The farmers grew the best corn I'd ever eaten, along with plump orange pumpkins, squash, beautiful gourds of every shape and size, and by far the yummiest Jersey beef steak tomatoes. I loved working there and the perks that came with the job. The following summer, I worked my way up from corn shucker to cashier. My mom's cancer, this book talks about my mom's cancer, was in remission, and she took great pleasure in driving me back and forth to work. For years, I watched this little farm stand expand and diversify into a bigger business. Over time, the owners created value-added products, homemade fudge, candied apples, and popcorn. I ingested it all, along with the perks of the business wisdom. They even added a little homemade donut shop, which was the bomb. These items extended the business season, and upon the owners also earning more money and confidence. The stand's colorful roadside harvest displayed with scarecrows, bales of hay, and mounds of pumpkins and gourds were eye-catching. The abundance and diversity attracted clients from far and wide. Again, confidence. The vibrant product, friendly customers service, and a playful ambience entice customers to come often and buy more. The whole experience was an excellent business model for a young budding entrepreneur such as myself. You'd think the Garden State would have these roadside farm stands everywhere. However, that was not the case. Instead, fast food franchises were planted. But these tales, these stories, these experiences made me who I am today. And the people who I affected their lives while being at the farm stand gave me the confidence to move on to bigger and better opportunities. Thank you so much for listening to that little story and the passion that I was able to receive, like just from the beauty and the abundance of this scenic place. All of it, the environment that I was in, and the feedback I got from the customers and the owners, and being promoted for corn shucker to cashier, confidence was instilled in me as a young girl at 13 years old. And think about it right now, guys. Where's your confidence level today? And who do you rely on to give you the kudos that you need? What is the environment that you're living in right now? Is it supportive and loving and endearing? Where is your confidence? And sometimes it's good to just sit with that in meditation, because your confidence is part of that whole ego thing, right? Overconfident, underconfident. So these are some of the subjects we're going to dive deep into. And if you have a story you want to share and you want to help somebody, maybe because of something you heard during this talk today with Julie, there's not too many better things you can do than help raise the level and the vibration of someone else's confidence. And in turn, that makes you a more confident, happy, well-versed person. So, without further ado, I am inviting you to take the garnish, not take, but garnish the wisdom from Julie DeLucca-Collins. She is the founder and the CEO of Go Confidently Services. She's also the host of a popular podcast called Casa DeConfidence and her weekly radio show called Confident. She is featured as a global talk radio on a global net. Sorry, she's just a global.
You're good.
Good. With
You're
her
good.
confidence. I don't want to lose my confidence here.
Don't lose your confidence. You don't even have to read the whole thing. I know who I am.
Right? Okay, that's so true. I'll let you go. But she's also a sought after public speaker, an author, a trainer, and a coach creator. And she is certified as a coach in cognitive behavior techniques, which we're going to get into, and holistic health, and how tiny habits, and that's really where I'm stuck. It doesn't take much to build your confidence, right? And how that will help you to thrive. So I just want to welcome you, Julie, to a dose of positivity for you to shine on everything. You're back there in Connecticut. And before we get into some of these great questions, I'd love for you to give us some background of how you became a confidence coach.
You know, Donna, thank you so much for having me. I have been looking forward to our chat from the first time we met. You are an incredible individual. I was just taken by your spirit, your soulfulness. And for me, this journey has been an ongoing journey. Before I was a coach, I was someone who was always looking to be a better version of my future self and be that person that people, we think, oh, how can I get better? I not only wanted to get better, but I also wanted to leave a meaningful impact in the world. And I knew that I had something to share. And this is why I began this journey. My career started as a teacher. And I think that in so many ways, I still am a teacher at heart. That's one of the things that comes very naturally. I then climbed the corporate ladder. I lived in the New York City metro area. I worked in New Jersey for many years
Very cool.
in Bergen County. And
That's where I'm
I,
from.
yeah, and I, by the way, I still have family in Bergen County in Fair Lawn. So those are my old stomping grounds. The thing about confidence is that even though as a young woman, I found myself in a corporate career and really starting to blossom and see that, oh, I think I'm really good at this, or I want to grow to the next level in my career. I found that there was always that side that had to second guess, ooh, who am I to think that I can do that? Or am I good enough? Or wait, I see that person doing this. Maybe I don't measure up. And what I found is that in the moments where I didn't think I had it together and didn't have the confidence to move forward, what I needed to do is take the next step, figure out what my next step was going to be. And as I started to practice, right? If I was going for a new role in my career, as I started to practice that new role, the more evidence I could get for myself that, hey, you did it, you got it. And the more evidence that I created for myself, the more that I found that I grew in confidence. So all of these skills helped me increase my motivation to keep going. The motivation came and helped me again keep working and gaining more skills, and my confidence kept growing. Again, throughout this career, and by the way, by the time I left corporate America, I had reached that C-suite that very few women get to. I was Chief Innovation Officer for an educational company out of New York. And what I found is that um, I would hear many women of different ages and backgrounds and would say, oh my God, this is so great. Congratulations. Look how great you're doing. I wish I was as confident as you. And I wanted to create a space where I could say to them, you, I don't have anything special. I don't have anything different from what you have. I just became very good at getting up quickly when I fell. I became very good at sitting still and being curious, and also being a little bit willing to be 1% better every time, right? And I think that a lot of people believe that getting good at something comes because we just do it, right? No, it's about showing up. It's about reiterating the version of who we are. And that's what helps us in the confidence. And that's how I became a confidence coach. I was laid off through the pandemic. And I knew immediately, okay, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I am going to help other women find that gift inside of themselves because it's there all along, right? It's kind of like Dorothy with the red slippers, the ruby slippers. We all have those ruby slippers inside of us. Someone just has to come alongside of us and help us notice them or learn how to use them.
Oh, I love that. Oh my gosh. I think we all should have a pair of red slippers in our closet just as a metaphor reminder of,
Right.
just, and that's part of what you do a lot of helping people is these tiny habits. And for some, that might be a good tiny habit to have, like to remember those ruby red slippers. So I love your story, and I love that you've been able to have the confidence as a very successful woman in the corporate world to go out on your own, and you're not a young chicken. You've been around the block a
Nope.
few times, and here you are out here helping other people. And I love the fact when I met you for the first time, the thing that really connected me and why I really invited you onto the show was there was a reason to be confident. There was a reason to do this. And you mentioned it early on. Is it because when you have this confidence, you can do good in the world. And I'd love you
Mhm.
to address that,
Yeah.
and to really give people the confidence they need, because we need some real good in this world right now.
Yeah. Sometimes we think, who am I to do this? But my question to the listeners, right? And this is the question that I ask myself is, if not me, then who? And all of us are created and have these very unique gifts that are so specific to who we are. And the world really is meant for us to be connected to other people, to come alongside other people. I think about, I'm going to tell you a story. This happened last year, but I was coming back from the beach here in Connecticut, which, it's not like your beaches in Hawaii, but I was coming back from the beach and I was tired. It's Sunday. I'd spent a couple days with my girlfriend on the beach, and I was rushing home and I realized that I needed to feed my husband, and we probably didn't have a lot of groceries at home. So I decided to run into the grocery store really quickly. And I decided I didn't even get a cart. Now, I went to Aldi's. So I don't know if you had Aldi's in Hawaii, but in Aldi's, you have to pay for your cart. And I couldn't even find a quarter. I was rushing in, and I was just getting enough stuff for dinner. But of course, if you're anything like me, you end up picking up a couple more things. I didn't even have a bag, and I'm holding all of it in my hands, and I'm like running to the register. And as I'm standing there in line, and I'm exhausted. And by the way, I'm looking around and I'm thinking, oh God, I hope I don't run into anyone I know. I look a mess. I don't know what I look like, but I must look like the crazy woman, at the grocery store. And as I get in line, there was a gentleman in front of me, and he was an older gentleman, and he was slowly taking things out of his cart, and he was taking one thing and slowly placing it on the belt, and then he would get and he one thing at a time, and he was looking at me, and I just kept thinking, and here, Donna, here's the magic, right? He's looking me up and down, and I am getting very self-conscious because I'm thinking, oh God, is he judging me? Like what? Like, why is he looking at me? And he kept going and putting stuff. And then finally, he, I was able to put some of my stuff down, and I realized that he was looking at me, not because he was checking me out or looking me up and down, thinking that I looked a mess, but he was probably self-conscious because it was taking him a long time to empty his cart. And I said to him, I said, "Hi, can I help you? Can I help you, so it's easier?" And I wasn't doing it because I was impatient. I wasn't doing it because I wanted to get out of the way. I was doing it because I noticed that it was probably a struggle for him. And I started to just pull stuff out and put it into the belt. And he's like, "Thank you." And then he finished and he went to pay. And I was distracted. I'm looking at the magazines that I had in my hand, and I'm waiting for him to pay. And then as he's paying, Aldi's is the kind of grocery store where the cash register puts your groceries back into your cart as you're paying. And so you basically, so it takes a little longer to kind of maneuver that basically. So he was still standing at the register, and she finished ringing me up, and I was kind of waiting for him to move out of the way so I could go and pay. And I'm not in a hurry at all. I'm just sitting there waiting for him. And the next thing you know, I turned to grab a bag because I needed to buy a bag at this point. So I turned and put the bag on, and I went to pay. And the cashier said to me, "Oh, the gentleman paid for your groceries as well." And the first thing that I thought is, "Oh, I must look homeless." because I really looked a mess. But then I realized that no, he was very appreciative that I had helped him, right?
Yeah.
And it didn't take a lot for him to help him. It was something that just came easy. But sometimes we go through our life and we are so caught up in us. We're so caught up in what people are thinking and where we are in our lives that we either don't notice what other people are going through, or we don't notice the opportunities of how we might be able to just a simple gesture be able to make a difference in the life of somebody else. By the way, I ran outside to try to say thank you to him, and he was gone. He, for someone who was not moving very quickly before, moved rather quickly when he got outside. But it was such a lesson to me to remember that every interaction is always an opportunity to share what I have, which may not be much, right? But to share it with whoever I come in contact with. And that's really one of the lessons that I want the listeners to walk away. As you're putting yourself out there in the world, do it because your gifts or what your ability to do and to put out into the world can make the difference for someone that day, right? And it could be the best interaction that someone may take away from their day and they will remember. And by the way, I've never had anybody buy me groceries, but and it was probably like a pizza and I don't know whatever I was feeding my husband that night. That was going to be a quick thing because it was late in the evening of a Sunday night. But yeah, that's one of my favorite interactions that I've had in this world that reminds me that our gifts, our opportunities are always in front of us if we're willing to step outside and look outside of ourselves.
Oh, that is such a beautiful story. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, I think that comes back to what I was mentioning earlier about, confidence or being conceited or being conscious, right?
Mhm.
Confidence is like you got conceited up here and you got that you want to be at this consciousness level, right? And
Mhm.
that was just being conscious. Like had you really been a hot mess and really not felt cared much about yourself, you have a hard time caring for
Yeah,
someone else. And that is so
absolutely.
beautiful. And while we're on this subject, because I want to jump into young people and like from what I was reading, how my confidence was built
Mhm.
by other people. But I have a story that is so raw and so fresh. It just happened the other day, and it has to do also with an older person. And if you guys have watched the news on national news, you might even know who I'm talking about because this older gentleman made national news. He was in his 80s, and him and his wife were in one of those tragic fires that
Mm,
burned their house to the ground, burned everything down. And
mm,
he is in his late 80s, and she's 83. And God willing, for some reason, houses blowing up all around them. They were managing to get into their car and leave. And when they left, they had to leave not only his dentures and every belonging they had, in shorts and a nightgown, um, had nothing. And their loves were in the house. They had these two gorgeous cats that they've had, and they were real cat people.
mm.
Anyway, we had an older cat who was needing a home because we have these four big dogs, and he's an older cat. He's like 13. He's just getting plummeted by the dogs, and we thought we need our cat needs it like a convalescent home. He needs a home where he can laugh. But anyway, this guy was so committed to his cats that he drove back in the blaze to the house area. We're trying to find it, and they captured him on his hands and knees, trying. And they,
Oh,
thank God they rescued him. That image is one of the defining moments of the tragic fires
mm,
we had here on our neighbor island. And so the daughter lives on the big island. She immediately they were those some of those people when they said 1,000 people were missing, right?
mhm.
They were in that they had no idea where their
Wow.
family was for days. And um, persistence paid, and then they found them, and brought them over here and 2 months ago, and then they just moved them into this apartment. But he has such post-traumatic stress going on, and he's
Mm,
just all he yearned for was his cats. And
yeah.
so I just happened to make this random call to my friend. Look, that my cat really could use, and she's a cat. She knows everybody in the cat. Just like right time, right magic, right moment. I got this one woman who's involved in this cat thing said, you gotta, and I did. And it, with the daughter came over with the mom the next day,
Mm-hmm.
picked up Buddha, our kitty,
Mm-hmm.
and they it has changed this man's confidence level from
Yeah.
like feeling so so much loss,
Yeah.
right? So it doesn't have to just be a person that can raise your confidence,
Right.
that not just this cat is bringing this man back to life. And
Mm,
so I'm just so thrilled to report that, you said it earlier. It's just like that whole timing issue, like, and I love that your patients really came out, even though you looked all ragged and just that word judgment, right? That word
right.
judgment, right? That'll crush your confidence in a heartbeat, especially young people. So, um, I'm really glad we both shared beautiful stories about older people, because we're all going to be older someday, and
Mm-hmm.
how we live our lives today really is going to matter how we live our lives when we're older. So I hope all you young people listening to this will take heart in this conversation, how these little tiny things can make a huge, monumental difference in people's lives. So let's talk about some of these tiny habits going beyond the ruby red slippers. Let's
Yeah.
talk about some of these tiny habits that people can do to build their confidence in life and in career.
Okay, that's my cue. I have to tell you that any time that I have gone through any type of certification for coaching or any training, it really has been from a selfish perspective because I am always trying to coach myself. I am my best client. And one of the things that I found is that I had read all the books when it came to habits, and I've been researching and reading, and there was seemed to be a piece missing. I knew that you can do habit stacking. I knew that you had to do it a certain amount of times, or I had read that you had to do, the consistent action a certain amount of time. And from that, I still felt like the motivation was really lacking at times for me. And I couldn't kind of make it click. And I thought, what's wrong with me? I'm not able to do this. Why can I create these habits that I want to create or break the habits that I don't want to have? So I happen to be, and maybe I'm dating myself or anybody was involved in the last 3 years with Clubhouse, the audio app. And I was in Clubhouse and I listened to Dr. BJ Fogg. Dr. Fogg is the founder of the Behavior Lab at Stanford University. He actually lives in Hawaii as well, in Stanford, so he goes back and forth. But Dr. BJ was talking about tiny habits. And he's done most of the books about habits include his research in it. But hearing this concepts from him of behavior design coming from the person that has been studying and doing a lot of the research on this all of a sudden made sense to me. He talks about how in order for us to create a new behavior, there needs to be three things present. Number one is motivation. Number two is the ability to do the new behavior. And number three, a prompt, something that reminds us to do the behavior. However, when things are
Can I say,
difficult,
I'm
yeah, go
sorry,
ahead.
what I would like you to do, and then I want to ask Tell to put those in the chat and say exactly what we did, because that was so important, and I want to
Yeah.
remember that. So I want that in writing. So Tell, I'm going to have you just say what these three three prompts are. And just go ahead and do that, and then we'll put that in the feed for
Yeah.
everybody.
So it's behavior equals, and this is the best way to remember it. B equals map. Behavior equals motivation, ability, and prompt. Those are the three things, right? Um, the biggest thing is that when we are trying to create a new behavior, so for instance, let's look at the people who want to go and start working out on January 1st. They're very motivated, right? They're
Right.
like gun ho, I'm going to go work out, I'm going to go do the thing. What ends up happening is that at the very beginning, because they're motivated, they're going to start to do the thing, do the action, and they have the ability. They schedule themselves to go to the gym, and they've set an alarm that reminds them to go to the gym, whatever it might be. But then all of a sudden, when motivation starts to lessen and diminish, and that motivation starts to be absent, because going to the gym, it's something that they haven't been doing. It's not an automation already in our brain. It's a behavior that we have established. Then it's hard to do that behavior when it's hard, right? Then we start to think, oh, I don't know. Can I run a couple miles today? Can I do weights? I don't know. Can I show up for that spin class today? So what Dr. Fogg talks about then is you want to create behavior that it's so tiny, so small that it doesn't require motivation for you to do it, that it's just an automation. You begin to pair up the new behavior that you want with an existing behavior. So for instance, for me, I wanted to go back to drinking at least 90 ounces of water a day. And when I first start, it's very motivating. I'm very motivated to get hydrated and to stay hydrated. But as time goes by and the motivation kind of shifts, then, oh, I got to drink that water. Oh, I don't feel like it. Maybe I'm going to drink some tea or whatever, right? So what Dr. Fogg suggests is you want to pair the behavior. So this is how a tiny habit works. And I'm going to give you my little recipe. So I get up in the mornings and I take my dogs outside, right? My dogs need to go out every morning. That's my existing behavior, my automation. I don't have to think about taking the dogs out. I just have to do it. It's part of my routine. It's a habit. So when I let the dogs out, that's my prompt. That's my prompt that's going to remind me, hey, you're taking the dogs out, drink your water, right? And then my ability is there because when I let my dogs outside, I'm in my kitchen, and guess what's next to the door in the kitchen? When I open the door, there is my water bottle. My water is sitting right there in the mornings so that I don't have to double think about it. And then here's where the magic happens with a habit. I had the ability and the prompt. The ability to drink my water because the water's sitting there. The prompt, when I let the dogs out, it reminds me to drink my water.
Yeah.
But the magic happens when we celebrate. Our brain changes when we feel good. Our brain changes when we create behaviors and we celebrate our small wins, and that helps us become more confident. So if I see myself doing the behavior, right? Oh, I drank water. Yay for me. Or good job, Julie. You're a girl who drinks water every day. Then that becomes easier to do. And we begin to automate these small behaviors. You know, in your book, you talk about seeds. And planting seeds, and habits are like seeds as well. When we create tiny habits, new behaviors, and when we marry these new behaviors to existing automations, then we allow ourselves to start to create new actions. And when we celebrate these new actions, then we become more successful at what we're doing. So that's how tiny habits work. There's so many different ways, for instance, in my life as a business coach, helping women build a confident business, be confident in this endeavor of growing their brand. We need to learn more productivity, but I'm not teaching them a whole lot. I'm teaching them of little tiny habits that they can create throughout the day, planting little seeds that they can then see the results from these tiny little behaviors that then they begin to feel more confident in their life.
I just love that. Seeds of change. Yeah. And just not, it doesn't have to be some big, massive thing. And each one of these, like when you're a little child, when you're a kid, you know, and all of a sudden you're putting the blocks up, and in each block you're celebrating.
Yes.
Look, and then they
Yes.
knock it all down, and that's fun too. You celebrate it because sometimes things fall down, and
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't have to be a bad thing. And then you build it up again. Oh, I love this.
Yeah.
And, you know, some people say with the seeds, you know, you can plant weeds or you can plant a vegetable garden. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, what we have to realize, sometimes those seeds, those weeds that we plant, even though they might be hard and bitter and not taste so good, like dandelions, we look at it as a weed, it's one of the most healthiest plants in the world.
Wow.
So sometimes we plant a seed and we think it's a weed, and really it's the best thing that can happen. And that's what I'd love to talk about a little bit right now, is like with this whole thing around the confidence and the tiny habits. And I love your like, okay, my mic reminds me to to speak into, or reminds me that I have to turn off my lights when I see the mic, right? Or whatever it
Right?
is. I love those little things. Um, but I think it is so important, for our listeners to realize, to acknowledge that the celebration in life, because
Mm-hmm.
right now there's not enough celebrating happening.
No.
People are, the world is so competitive, especially, like I write about it in Living Like the Future Matters, like women in business, right? Let's dive into that, like how hard that is for women, you know, not to be the CUNT word, you know,
Mm-hmm.
to be a confident, powerful, brilliant, and dynamic woman who's making beautiful changes in the world.
Yeah.
And people can look at him and say, "Oh, you're just planting a bunch of weeds. You're a bitch, and you know what? Who do you think you are?" And you're saying, "But these weeds are medicine. They're going to save the world, but nobody's listening to you because they want processed foods, or they want sugar, or they want whatever, you know, that we think that the norm of what the media wants us to think we should." And those are
Yeah.
disruptors of healthy habits. So let's get into what that the healthy habits, by understanding, knowing what we're planting, you know, because we
Yeah.
can plant narcissistic things and we can plant nice things. So let's
Yeah.
that's a lot to
It's a
unpack.
lot. And by the way, and Donna, I want to share a little bit of when we coach individuals in, the Tiny Habits Academy that I belong to, we coach hundreds and thousands of individuals looking to create tiny habits, and we do it for free. The one thing that happens and that a lot of people will say, oh, I did it, but I have a hard time with the celebration. I have a
Mhm.
hard time celebrating. The one thing that you said, right? When that little kid drops their blocks and they explode, they're like, oh, right? It doesn't have to be really big. Most people think the celebration part has to be this crazy thing or step out of your comfort zone. I tell my clients, think about maybe you opening an email and you're getting really, really good news. You're getting the news that you were expecting. And what do you usually do when you read that email that just has great news? You're like, oh, yes, right? Something really tiny. It doesn't have to be, you can do, one of the first things I like to say to myself is like, good job, Julie, you drank your water. Yay. And by the way, when I'm drinking my water, I am not going for drinking the entire thing. My goal is to maybe just drink a sip of it. And every time I drink a little bit of my water, I celebrate myself. I give myself the thumbs up. There's so many different ways. A lot of people give themselves a little snap. Um, some people kind of rub their hands together and say, "Yay, I did it." So there's so many different ways that we share. We share we have a sheet that says 102 ways to celebrate, and all of them are really tiny things that we do every day to celebrate, but we don't realize we're celebrating because we make it mean that we have to be big, we have to be extravagant, but confidence will come from you really pointing out to yourself that you made that little tiny step in the right direction. And again, most people will think, oh, but if I only do a little bit at a time, I'm never going to get to my goal. I want to tell you, and for the people who are saying and thinking that, you can do two things. You can do a little bit at a time and if you're filling a bucket one drop at a time, you're going to fill it. If most people think they have to open, the hose and just dump a bunch of water, what ends up happening is a lot of times we go all in and then we lose our head of steam and then our bucket falls. And then we feel bad that the bucket fell and we spill the water. And then we don't go back to filling the bucket. And then time goes by and that bucket hasn't been filled. Whereas if you're doing one little drop at a time, that consistent action gets you traction. And I want to invite the listeners to be okay with celebrating every little tiny thing, because 1% increment, it's going to give you over 300% improvement in a year. Whereas going big and then dropping off and not doing the work is going to give you a lot of angst. It's going to make you fall behind.
Oh, that's so great. I love that. Each little action gives you traction. I love that.
Yeah.
I really, really appreciate that a lot. And I hope, I know from someone who turned the faucet on for a good part of my life and, kind of feeling like I had to prove myself in the male dominant world and getting really lost, like really losing my health over it. I didn't lose my identity because I was capable of filling the faucet. And you know what? I was really good at not dumping over the bucket. And I was really good at being confident, and where some people might have seen it as being like conceited or arrogant or like I got too much because I got all these full buckets around. And I never even looked at it like that because I was giving the buckets away. And that was the whole point of being successful for me, was like, how can I serve? This bucket is full. You take this bucket and you go share it with everybody. And then I'm going to go fill another one. Like I felt like I would have to be a superhuman woman to keep up in the male dominant world. And I'm telling people right now, like listeners, that maybe not have been the best thing to do. We don't have to constantly prove ourselves to have all this confidence. And, and if you read Living Like the Future Matters, a lot of what I write about is women who, lose their confidence, just trying to be a good, loving, compassionate dandelion planter.
Oh,
thinking
I love it.
out of the box, thinking like I'm planting health and nourishment and love and kindness and joy. It might be a little bitter sometimes, but I am not going to buy in to the corporate world. I'm not going to buy into all that stuff. So I might have to turn on the faucet to fill it up. And I ignored the tiny habits. And a lot of I ended up with chronic kidney disease. I ended up with mercury poisoning. I ended up with a lot of health issues.
Yeah.
And I'm only 66. And I'm doing the tiny habit thing right now, right? Like, it's just like, I'm looking at my older senior cat right now, and he all the habits he has, and just being with these old people, like you change as you age, you change,
Right.
as you take on these new habits. So I really like your analogy so much about these tiny drops. And I also want to say that sometimes, you do need to turn on the faucet when the fire's on.
Yeah.
But you want to save that. That's that parasympathetic versus the sympathetic nerve system, that flight or fear. Sometimes it takes courage and get to put out the fire. Yeah. But by having these tiny habits, it strengthens your immune system. It strengthens your fortitude. So when the shit hits the fan or when something happens, you're courageous, you're confident because you have this benchmark, right? Of everything Julie's been just talking about right now. so that you can be part of the solution, as we like to say on a dose of positivity, SOUL, long-term, solving long-term problems. Um, yeah, I really love this. And Julie, listen, before we're almost time up, this conversation went so
Wow,
fast.
that
I
went
hope
by
everybody
fast.
enjoying this. I'd love to invite you to come on after. I just have a couple of announcements, and then I want to let you just close us out with just your most profound wisdom of what you can leave the listeners with, like a tiny. You gave us some examples of tiny habits, but like
Hmm.
kind of thinking with the listeners, like how do they want to be remembered, right? And how those
Yeah.
tiny habits. But before we do that, I just want to let everybody know that first of all, I want to thank Julie you so much for being here and sharing all your wisdom with us. And I want to also share with everybody that next week I am traveling on Tuesday to North Carolina, and I am going to be I'm going to be in East Coast time. I'll be in your time zone, Julie. So,
Ooh.
but on October 12th, our next guest speaker is incredible. I can't say his last name. It's a Hawaiian name, so I don't want to do it justice, but it's James Kawainui, something like
Mm.
that. I'm going to have him do it because I don't want to be disrespectful. But he will be talking about ho'oponopono, which is in the Hawaiian word language means resolving inner conflict for outer transformation, which is so much of what we talked about today, and how these tiny habits and things that we can do, we can resolve our inner conflict by just reinforcing the values that we strive to do, and who we strive to show up to be every day. So then once we have that inner transformation happening, the outer transformation really shines. And Julie, I feel like you've given us so much just as a lead into this next discussion I'll be having with James next week. Um, on this transformational journey, and part of the transformation, and a lot what we're going to be talking with James about, because I think he's like something like 8th generation Hawaiian, and we're going to be talking a lot about legacy. And I would love for you to close this out, because I know a lot of what you talk about with your tiny habits, and when you work with your clients, you talk about this idea of legacy. And I'd love for you to leave us with your wisdom in regards to that. And also, we're going to make sure that all your links and all your information and your list, that people can get to that 102 wonderful tiny habits. We'll make sure that goes into the show notes. So all of you listening, either if you're a replay, you click below, and if you're here today, we'll have that access to you right away. So legacy and confidence and moving forward, where do we go with this?
You
And
know,
where
one of
do
the biggest things that I want to encourage the listeners is that confidence is going to be an inside job. Confidence is going to be that moment that you just decide that you're scared, the moment where you think you're not good enough. Confidence is that moment when you feel somebody else is better. I want you to know that confidence is going to come from you deciding to take whatever that first step is into taking the action for the thing that you are afraid of, you are unsure of, or that you feel may take a million steps to get there. Our journeys are about, and I think this is the biggest lesson that I wish Julie at 25 would have really known, right? That time is going to go by anyway. So why not take that first step and decide, like, I'm taking this first step and I'm going to step into my bravery. I'm going to step into my action. I'm going to take the action that my future self will thank me for, because I decided to move forward and to do the one simple thing that creates, again, that evidence. I want listeners that in the time that they're feeling maybe unsure of themselves, I'd like to keep You're going to laugh. I keep a little notebook on my desk, and it's a plain little notebook. But basically what I do on a daily basis is I keep notes, and I come up with at least one thing per day that I did better than yesterday, that I took a step forward on. And this is my evidence of me doing the thing, whatever the thing may be. And when I'm feeling like I'm not good enough, when I'm feeling I can't, when I'm feeling I will never, I come back here and I look, I'm like, oh, yesterday I didn't think I could do that thing. And look, I tried and I started it, and yesterday I finished it, right? So all of these things are going to add up. So keep track and see the journey that you've been on. Focus on the right now. Go back and look at what you've been able to do. Measure what you've been doing, because that is going to give you the momentum to move forward ahead. If you keep looking at where you're not, and Donna, you'd love this analogy. I think of confidence as standing on a beach. If you're standing on the beach and you're looking at the horizon and you start walking to the horizon will always keep moving. Mm-hmm. But if you focus and say, oh, I walked from that beach house over there, look how far I've come, right? Then you can see like, oh, I can keep going. I came that way. Look how far I am now. That is measurable. The future, what is unseen, is not measurable. So confidence is going to come from you seeing the evidence of where you've been, what you've done, and who you were.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And that's all part of building your legacy and standing on the shoulders of those who stood before you, or those who stand surrounding you, that you can help build their confidence, and they will in turn help build your confidence. So we can all go out there and do great things in the world, because the world needs you right now. It needs
absolutely
all of you. And I am so grateful to you. And I just want to say that I appreciate you and I love you. And I'm going to also look forward to seeing you come on other shows in the future and show up as a guest, and also just championing on other people as we bring more and more positivity to the world on a dose of positivity. So everybody take care, big love, and aloha.
Aloha, everyone. And Donna, thank you for everything.
You are so welcome. I love you. Aloha.
Aloha, my friend.
Namaste.
Namaste.